everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We have a special guest for our interview, and I'm looking forward to this because it's going to be on a very important subject. We're going to talk about gold, and I think this gentleman actually believes gold is money, so he's a little bit different than those guys I ran into in Washington. I'd like to welcome Bill Haynes today to our studio. Bill, good to be with you.
Ron, thank you for having me on.
Now, you have a company called CMI Gold and Silver. It's been around for a couple years. You started your company when? Back in about 1973, is that correct?
That's correct. Started in 1973 and have been in business continuously since then.
Yeah, back in 1973, gold wasn't even legalized. Were you able to sell any gold at all in 1973? Were there any loopholes that permitted you to sell gold, or did you have to wait till 1975?
Ron, we waited till January the 1st, 1975. We actually started selling silver because of a very bullish report put out by Merrill Lynch. From that report, we got into the silver business, and of course, we picked up gold immediately when it became legal, effectively January the 1st, 1975.
Now, you went to the University of Colorado and you studied finance. Do you mind telling us what year you graduated from the University of Colorado?
Actually, I graduated in 1973, and I started CMI Gold and Silver.
Oh, you did?
Immediately after the graduation.
Now, also, during the time you were in college then, had you gotten involved in understanding economics, and did you know about Austrian economics, and did you know the monetary philosophy at the time, or did you learn that later on?
Ron, I learned that later on. I learned nothing at the University of Colorado that would have led me to get into the gold and silver business. The book that really set me off was by Harry Brown, and I'm sure you know the name of it, How to Profit from the Coming Devaluation. It was there that I learned what money really is, and learned, the importance of gold to a monetary system.
But there was in the early part of the 70s, there was the monetary issues going on, and that was big news, the breakdown of the Bretton Woods and then further legalization of gold. But did you understand that significance at that time, or when do you think you got hold of Harry Brown's book?
I didn't get a hold of Harry Brown's book until late 72. I was at the University of Colorado when Nixon closed the gold window. Nice little euphemism for, defaulting on our responsibility to convert our paper dollars into gold. But he closed the gold window. There was a minor discussion about it. Nobody thought it would be anything of significance. And actually, an old miner from Montana handed me the book, How to Profit from the Coming Devaluation, and that just sent me in a whole new direction toward understanding money.
In those early years, was when the libertarian movement became more noticeable, although there were libertarian thinking going on a long time. And of course, Harry Brown ended up being a candidate twice on the Libertarian Party. Were you aware back even in 72 about the Libertarian Party? I know in later years you got interested in all libertarian politics, and you've been supporters of my efforts when I was in Congress and running for Congress, and even now you've been very helpful. But how about back in the early 70s? Were you in touch with any of the libertarians at that time?
At that time, I was not in touch with libertarians. I learned over the years, I kept finding that many of the views that I held fit with the libertarian philosophy. I would say I was probably a conservative. I made the complete conversion when I got introduced to the things that you and Lou Rockwell were doing. When I realized that the war on drugs was wrong, not only because it's a lost war. I mean, that war is over, drugs have won. But also when I realized that it was none of my business what somebody else did with their body. And then, of course, your important contribution to me was, your foreign policy is, this zero aggression policy. We had no right to go around the world trying to impose our values on other people. And, and it's so dreadful in that it's resulted in, millions of deaths.
Yes, there's no doubt, and once people discover it, all of a sudden they say, "Hey, that makes it's common sense. It comes together. It's consistent." When we talk about the civil liberties as well as the foreign policy, and then monetary and economic policy, it comes together. And obviously, there's been a transition over these last 30 or 40 years, and we have been working on it for a long time. We're pretty optimistic, and so we're always delighted when we meet people like you. Has your philosophy on investment and protection and what to do with the metals, gold and silver, how has that changed from when you started? You said you could just sell silver early on and gold became legal, but what about the differences between buying bullion coins and bullion bars themselves and numismatics? Tell us how that may have transpired and where you are now on what you advise clients to do.
Ron, I started with the bullion products, and I have stayed with the bullion products all the way through. In the late, we had the big bull market run up that culminated in January 1980. Then we went into a bear market. By the mid 1980s, the industry had recognized that there was no new money coming into the gold and silver market. So there was some, what I considered unscrupulous moves to get people to switch out of bullion products, Krugerrands, into Maple Leafs. And shortly after that, many people in the industry discovered old U.S. gold coins. In the mid 80s, there was two grading services, PCGS and NGC, that sprung up. They started grading the coins because of the misrepresentations in the industry. Unfortunately, that has not really solved the problem. Many people, when they go out and buy old U.S. gold coins, can pay anywhere between 30% and 50%, sometimes 100% above the real value of those products in the marketplace. Those products' values are hard to determine. They get graded. They get what we call slabbed, put in pieces of plastic. It does protect the coins. I've written on my website that the grading services did a wonderful job in taking the fraud of the grading out of the numismatic industry. However, those grading services will grade just about anything you send to them. They will grade a brand new proof U.S. Gold Eagle that gets sent in, which is an MS 69 or 70, any way you look at it. Those coins get promoted as desirable for IRAs. And we end up with people paying, as I said, 30 to 50% above the real value of those products. The industry became so bad that one of the companies that offered IRA programs actually started getting their clients to sign statements. I have been told the true value of the products that I am buying. And of course, that caused a lot of the firms to move away from that company. I still work with that company, and I appreciate what they're doing. When it comes to the gold and the silver, the U.S. government, the Treasury, our fractional reserve banking, they're debasing the dollar at just a tremendous rate. Beyond the quantitative easing, we have fractional reserve banking, which probably was the hardest thing for me to grasp when I tried to understand money, but it's something that has to be understood. But we have the Treasury involved in debasing the currency, and at the same time, the U.S. Treasury produces wonderful bullion gold coins called American Gold Eagles. 1 ounce coins, 22 karat. You could buy them at 4 or 5% above the value of their gold content, and that is just an excellent way for people to invest in gold.